Hi, welcome back to part 2.
Part 2.
Yep.
All
Okay.
right. Here we go.
Here we go. Okay. So earlier we talked about there are different problematic behavior in a relationship. In here, we're going to talk about how to manage conflict. Okay. So when we think about conflict management style, there are 2 dimensions that we need to pay attention. One is assertive and cooperativeness. So assertiveness is a degree to which you try to make sure your own concerns are satisfied. So it's more about you. Cooperativeness is a degree to which you attempt to satisfy the other person's concern. So one is you, more about you, one is more about the other person. Okay, so let's take a look. Next one. There are 5 styles of conflict management: competing, accommodating, avoiding, compromising, and collaboration.
Right.
Okay, and it will look like next one. This. So one, see on the left is called assertiveness. So the more you care about you, then and the less you care about the other person, you'll be more competitive. You are more competitive, right? But the lower you care about yourself and you don't actually care about the other person, you will try to use avoidance. Okay, and in the middle is compromise. So let's find a way to meet in the middle. Well, but for some people, it's not a win-win situation. Actually, it's a lose-lose situation.
Right.
And we can talk about this later.
Mm-hmm.
Accommodation is you care more about the other person than yourself. Okay, the most ideal situation is what we call collaboration. So you care about yourself, but you also take the other person's need into consideration. Okay, the first one, next slide, please.
Whoops, sorry. Mm-hmm.
It's what we call competing. So high assertiveness and low cooperativeness. It's what we call win-lose approach. Like I win, you lose. Okay, so next. So usually in this, if you are this kind of person, you like compete with the other person, you try to win the arguments or to get a resolution you want, even if the other person is not happy with the outcome.
This is where they say to people, you're so competitive, right? Because of this, like you're playing a game and you don't care about if the other person wins or not. I mean, and that's kind of how it should be, I guess. But that competitive spirit comes through, whether it's positive or negative, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're in an argument like, oh, you're so competitive. That would not be the best description.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And next, based on best used in situation in which you care deeply about the outcome, and time is limited, and decision must make quickly. So usually in this kind of situation, because you don't have enough time to sit down and discuss any alternative, you will be the one who make decision. Okay.
In television, we relied on this method a lot because there wasn't time.
Mm-hmm.
We have to know, and it's like, well, okay, here's how we're doing it, and people knew not to say anything because there wasn't
enough time.
Yeah, it had to be this. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so next style is what we call accommodating, low assertiveness and high cooperativeness. So I lose, you win. This is the idea of this style. Next. So basically, it's a person giving the desire and position of the other person. So okay, you want to go there, just go. Okay, right. McDonald's for dinner. Okay, I won't fight for KFC, but it's okay, right?
So I can't see you fighting for KFC. Okay, on any day, given any style. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Right. So it was when an issue is not something to which you hold a strong position. So you are more flexible with the result, then you can use accommodating management. Okay. Avoidance, low assertiveness and low cooperativeness. You basically avoid the other person, and you don't want to okay, most of the time this kind of person, they don't like conflicts. That's why they try to avoid conflict. Okay, but sometimes it will make things worse. Right? Okay,
right, because
next
you're
one.
avoiding it, right?
Mm-hmm. And next one is what we call collaboration. It's high assertiveness and high cooperativeness. This is a win-win situation. I care about myself, but also I care about you.
This is a hard one.
Really hard.
Yeah,
Really
really hard. It's a hard one, but I do think though, the more you get accustomed to trying to work like this, you develop tools that help you kind of, you know, get this income and outcome, and it does get a little bit easier and more natural.
Yes, but again, not easy.
Theoretically, yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So it must be beneficial for both parties, right? But the most difficult. Next one. Okay, so the goal for this kind of management style is try to find a solution that allow both parties to win. So that means next one, you need to identify what each party really wants and how to so you will know how to develop a solutions. However, it's very time consuming. So like when you say in the TV industry, collaboration, it rarely happens, right? Because
right,
it's so time consuming.
if you're in the middle of shooting, right, you know, filming something, if you're determining what the show might look like and you're just in the office doing pre-production, collaborating could totally work, right?
Mm-hmm.
In that, if you but again, like to your point, you have the luxury of time.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're making decisions out there under the gun and time is money, and you have to, you know, get done by a certain time, you don't have time for this. Sit down and go, well, how do you feel? You don't have time.
Mm-hmm. Right. So I think next one will be the most common way that people use in order to manage conflicts. Is what we call compromising. So mid-assertiveness and mid-cooperativeness. So you can say it's a win-win situation but it can also be lose-lose approach.
Most
why?
I'm sorry.
No.
Most bills that get passed, you know, legislative bills, rely on this, a compromise. Rarely does one side get everything they want and the other side says okay, or rarely, you know, if ever, do the two sides agree on what should be done. So typically it's a compromise.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, next. So both sides sacrifice part of what they want, but also they're getting something they desire. Right, next. Oh, okay. So yeah, let's compromise. The most common, I feel, is the most common way people use. So in this one, as 2 dimensions, remember conflict management style is assertiveness and cooperativeness. One is think about yourself, one is think of the other party. There are 5 communication management styles. You need to know all these 5. Not every disagreement can be resolved or managed effectively with the same approach. So sometimes you might use competing. Sometimes you may need to use avoiding. Okay, depends on situation and how much you care about the topic. Okay, so what's the activity here?
Oh, apologies. Yes. So, like Dr. Chang just said, here are the 5 styles. Think of a conflict you had with someone recently. It could be a friend, a coworker, a family member, and what style did you use in order to manage that conflict? Okay, was it competing? Was it accommodating? Was it avoiding, compromising, or collaborating? All right, and tell us why. You know, set the scene. I was you know, arguing, or I was disagreeing with a family member of whoever it was about X. I, you know, relied on the conflict management style of blank by, and then whatever your, you know, whatever your behavior was. And if you want to throw it in just for your own, maybe for us, in your own journaling little purposes, and you want to say, you know, whether that was the best one or whether you maybe would rather have used a different style, let us know that too.
Okay. So yep, the
Moving
next
on.
one. Mm-hmm. So I think this is like dialogues and conflict resolution. So what do we need to do in order to solve conflict or manage conflicts? First thing, use descriptions versus evaluation. Okay. Do you want to explain this a little bit?
Sure, sure. You know, like the last sentence says there, you don't focus on the character of the person,
Mm-hmm.
right? If I want to try to resolve some conflict with you and do it in a diplomatic way, I don't want to say, well, you F and B, you're always blah, blah, blah. No, no. What I want to do is say, well, you know, I feel like when we do this, or I feel like when you do this, here's how it affects me, like the I language, like we talked about, right? Use description like that versus trying to evaluate someone. Whether it seems like a derogatory or not, don't really avoid that sort of judgment.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So use description more than evaluation. Next, focus on solving problem, not controlling outcome. Okay, so focus on the issue itself. Okay, rather than trying to control which solution gets enacted. Good. That means like, please don't be competitive with like your outcome. Focus on determining which solution is most effective and solving the problem. Okay. So do you want to add anything here?
Not really. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, right? You know, when you work on the problem or the disagreement with somebody, it seems like you're actually doing that. You're working with someone, right? And if I go in kind of knowing, we're going to talk about this a little later too, but if I go in kind of knowing about like, oh, here's what I want, and I become a little like manipulative or a little gamey, that's not great conflict management.
Okay, so next slide, please. Okay, so the last thing here is like we need to be spontaneous, not strategic.
Right. Which is a lot like the last one.
No, you can continue.
I was going to say, it's a lot kind of like the last one. Like spontaneous doesn't mean just say the first thing that comes to your head and don't worry about how it affects others. It means, to me, it means stay in the moment. You know, focus on this. Don't try to have some sort of like hidden agenda, you know, some sort of strategy that you don't want to disclose to try to get somebody from A to C, you know, or A to B without just dealing with that. Just do it head on. Don't, you know,
Right.
don't try to manipulate people.
Well, again, this is really hard because when you have
Yeah.
emotions, it's really hard to apply, like to practice all these things we just mentioned, right? But like, if you keep everything this in mind and try to manage it, one day you will succeed. Well, I'm still trying. So
I know. Well, it is. It's a work in progress, you know, definitely. But the thing about it is, with all of these, I feel like, Dr. Chang, like when you start using these techniques, the minute you don't, you start feeling a little bit like, oh, something feels a little off kilter because you're not used to communicating using these techniques when it comes to conflict. You'll feel it. You'll know it. Mm-hmm.
So keep going, keep working. Okay, express empathy, not neutrality. Okay, neutrality. What does it mean? Just like you don't show your support, you don't express what you think. Okay, please show something. When someone talk to you, they give some feedback. Okay, feedback sometimes is very important. Remember, in a communication model, we always express some feedback at the same time.
Yeah, have you ever walked into a room and people haven't greeted you, who know you well? You know, that is a very, rude, I don't know how to say it except rude, but that is being very neutral in a negative way, is intended here, because you don't have to say anything mean-spirited to me. I get that feeling when I'm walking in and not. So remember, when you're not on the receiving end of that, and you're the person that someone's walking into a room, have some empathy. What would it be like to be them? Be nice, right? You know, notice them, welcome them, be that person.
The last thing is acknowledge equality. Don't be superior. Okay, that means like don't use contempt in interpersonal relationship. Don't think you are better than the other person. All of us have some strengths and weakness. Okay, we are all equal. You know something that I don't know. You are capable to do something that I can't. Right? So you need to acknowledge equality.
This can be hard too. This can be a hard one too sometimes.
See, nothing is easy. Interpersonal relationship is really hard, to be honest.
No, it is. It is. And, you know, this is where the talking down to people comes in, right? You know, like you don't want to be condescending to people when you talk to them. They can see right through it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and next one, the last thing. Be provisional, not certain. Okay, do you want to explain this a little bit?
Sure, that provisionalism is the inability to be flexible and open to different ideas. So if you go into it so closed off, right, and exhibit the stonewalling, and you just, it's your way or the highway, and you aren't going to budge for anybody, and you don't even want to hear anybody's opinion, you're not going to get anywhere. So that's what this is suggesting. Be provisional. Go in with somewhat of an open mind. The way that I think it works best, it can work best, is if you think, well, what's the worst thing that could happen? So that doesn't happen. Okay, I'm going to have to give a little bit on this one, maybe.
Okay, so yep, I think this is chapter 12. So we are almost there.
Almost there.
So we have one more chapter, chapter 18, next class. And then we are going to have review session and event 2. Okay, so don't forget to write down your example of interpersonal conflicts. And we will see you next chapter. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.